Good evening and welcome to United Soccer FC. My name is Harry, host of the show here. Tonight we have Mike Sparks, host of Mon Goals, which is part of the BGN network, and who has also recently joined the video podcast ranks on YouTube here. So I've enjoyed the last two episodes because I won't lie to you, I've catch quite a few episodes of Mon Goals, but not every episode. And where it's on YouTube, I typically will catch that a little bit easier because I can have it on in the background at work for that here. So how are you doing this evening, sir?
I'm good, man. Thanks. I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate the support. I mean, you following an Eastern Conference team is pretty awesome. So, kudos to you. Yeah, no, this is great. I love, we were saying off air a little bit, I love just getting out there and talking to other fans, and it's just so much fun sharing the passion and just talking about the game. And, it's the same game. It's just all over the place. So it's a good time. Yeah,
it's the same game, same, you like to think same atmospheres, but every place is a little bit unique. That, I've traveled quite a bit to the West, and I went to Louisville. I've been to St. Louis, when they were part of the league here. It all has some common, but, I love the little local varieties that get added into it, which we'll hopefully get to. Talking about Highmark Stadium and what the Steel Army brings, to the environment with that here. But obviously we can't talk Riverhounds without touching base about last year, where you guys finished second to Hartford with a 11-1-4 record. To me, an outstanding plus 29 goal difference. However, because you finished second, you had to travel back to Louisville, which unfortunately you guys lost this time around.
Yeah.
To me, the division was lost at the home game on September 26th. Against Hartford on there. I'm not sure if you were there. If you obviously you probably watched it here, but going into the season, Hartford, if we're honest, wasn't very good, or at least thought to be very good. However, during the year they did, but I think many people expected Pittsburgh to be able to pull out the win on that one there. So, not singling on a specific game, but I think in the Riverhounds case here, that was unfortunately the season, that cost you guys to play against Louisville in the first round as opposed to St. Louis, which I know the Luligans and This Is Silly podcast were really hoping to be able to go to Pittsburgh just because it would have been a shorter trip, since it was, they knew at that point that was their final year. So thoughts on last year, and especially, that game against Hartford. It was a close 1-0 loss where you guys ended up being up a man for the last 18 minutes or so of the game.
Yeah, that Hartford game hurt, man, especially since, 2 games before that, we beat Hartford 5-0. So we go into that game and we think we have it made. Last year was sort of, it was really difficult for fans because obviously because of COVID, everything was sort of shifted around, and our division was really kind of easy. I mean, we had a bunch of 2 teams. We had Loudoun, New York Red Bulls 2, St. Louis FC, which we knew it was going to be their last season. We knew they were going to come out to play. We had Philadelphia Union 2. Indy 11 seemed like sort of our biggest competition, Indy and Louis. But even they weren't really in our division,
right,
the way it was structured. So we thought we had it made. And really, I mean, we were beating on all the 2 teams. But, as the season progressed, I think that there was that question that sort of kept popping up in the back of our minds of, are the Hounds really, really good? Or is it just that all of these 2 teams just really aren't great? And unfortunately, I think what happened was we hit that point. We had that 5-0 win over Hartford, and then it just sort of, I don't want to say that it nosedived, but then we beat Loudoun only 1-0. We ended up losing to Hartford 1-0. We barely beat Philadelphia Union 2, and we sort of limped into the playoffs. So I think compared to the previous season where we sort of rolled into the playoffs. Our first playoff game, we steamrolled Birmingham Legion. I want to say it was something like 6-0. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was men against boys that game.
Exactly. And then, losing the second round to Louisville. This one, it was okay, we're going to Louisville. I don't think a lot of fans had high hopes based on the way that we were playing. So it was a bit of a letdown. I think a lot of us were just happy that there was soccer last season.
Right.
So definitely hopes for something new this year. Different concerns heading into this upcoming season, which I'm sure we'll get to. But yeah, I mean, I think especially going into last year, it was just strange to even when it started to even watch soccer. We were like, does soccer even matter like right now? And it turned out like, oh no, it matters. Like we definitely enjoy watching the game and it's fun. So to make it as far as we did, we were just like, okay, like cool, great. Let's reset and 2021, here we come.
Yeah, I went to the first game pre-COVID. And then I went to the playoff game, but I didn't take my kids to that one there, and double masked and very social distancing. But those were the two games that I went, even though we had opportunities to go during the season. It was just, I'm appreciative that it's there, but family comes first, and it's bad enough I was the one taking the risk going to the grocery stores to get the food and stuff like that, to let alone to where, hey, Monica, can I go to the game? And that just wasn't a conversation worth having.
I've been there.
So,
yeah, I feel you.
So playoffs, I did tell her, I was like, if they go to the playoffs, that's, I'm sorry, I have to draw the line on that one. But we didn't, normally I take the kids, but I didn't take the kids that one there. It was just, just me that went. So yeah, it was a pretty unique time, for that here. And to me, the reason why I was hoping Riverhounds would avoid Louisville City is because I think one of the highlights of the Riverhound season was going into the new stadium in Louisville that first week. And even though I think you guys fell down 1-0, came back and scored the next 3 to, to give a sour taste, I guess you could kind of say, for Louisville City fans.
We loved it.
Walking away as a I always love when the away team wins in the home openers stadiums there, just because it sours the moment a little bit for that here. So, well,
for sure. And I mean, when we sort of look at the dynamic of the Eastern Conference, I think for years, since we started being hardcore fans and following the team, the Hounds were always sort of like a middle of the pack squad. And 4 years ago now, this will be his 4th season. Bob Lilly came in and almost immediately just like changed the entire attitude. And I think when you look in the East, and you probably have similar feelings out West, every year you can sort of guess which teams are going to be the ones that are near the top. And in the East, it's always been Louisville takes it very seriously. Right. Indy is going to splash all the money. Whether or not they show up, that's a different story.
They're like San Antonio.
Yeah, and then, since the Lilies come in, Pittsburgh has consistently been one of those teams. So we always – I think that when we're looking at who is the top team in the East, who do you want to compare yourself to? We have to say that it's Louisville. As much as we love to say that, Pittsburgh's the best, until we beat Louisville in the playoffs, Louisville is that team to beat. So
Louisville and Tampa are the class of
exactly, at
least at this point of the East. And I hate to say it, I don't see them slowing down anytime soon.
I don't disagree
that here.
And so to roll into Louisville in their home opener and their brand new stadium when they're feeling themselves, and we walk away with a win, a come from behind win, was just, it's great. And like, we love the guys at Louisville. We know a lot of people in Louisville, and we love having banter back and forth. But yeah, that was awesome.
But that made, when it was announced that Pittsburgh was going to be going to Louisville for the playoffs.
Yeah.
Not only how your form was, but Louisville was waiting for you guys. For that was probably circled on there saying we're not going to let this happen again, and they didn't.
Yeah, that's why I said once we saw that's what it was like, okay, all right, well, we'll see you guys next year.
So let's see how it goes. But so to me, you can't talk about Pittsburgh without talking about Highmark Stadium, which. I've never been there, but from everybody that I've heard on social media, that has gone there, they say it is one of the crown jewels of not only USL championship, but really of lower division soccer here. So what's kind of game day like? So pregame, postgame, just what is the environment at Highmark Stadium that makes it so special?
So first of all, Highmark Stadium is situated on the south side of Pittsburgh. So basically, you're not in downtown Pittsburgh, but there's, as many people know, there's sort of three rivers in Pittsburgh. So we're on one side of the river, and so that sets it up so that from the start, you're literally like right on the river. So when you're tailgating, you're right on the river, overlooking the city, and it's amazing. You get a nice cool breeze coming off there. I'm sure the Steel Army will say sometimes it's too hot, but it's fantastic. So first of all, it's a huge party atmosphere before the game. Like everybody has their own tailgate. You can sort of bounce from tailgate to tailgate. It's cool because a lot of the players' families will have tailgates. So
nice.
Like Robbie Mertz, who's a huge player for us the past few seasons, his family shows up in droves, and you can just go up and hang out with the Mertz family, which is awesome. So pregame, it's a lot of fun. Everybody goes down, has a good time. There's kids playing soccer in the parking lot. You can just jump in and play with them. The Steel Army always has their big tailgate, and literally everybody's welcome. A friend of ours on Mon Goals, Liz, Josh's wife, will literally just grab random people who are walking by and say, "Hey, we're the Steel Army. Come on over here, and we'll give you some food," and like just pull them in. So it really is like a big family fun atmosphere pregame. Once you get into the game, the stadium is sort of open on one side, and that one side is the river along with the train tracks. So if you do watch a game, you will very often see trains crisscrossing next to the field. But to sit with the Steel Army in sort of the one open end, it's just to sort of put it in perspective for you. My wife, who has never been a soccer fan, like I played for years, I've coached for years, my kids have played for years, and she goes and she watches games, but like doesn't get into the nitty gritty, and it's just she's there because the kids have fun. We went and sat with the Steel Army once, and my wife turned and looked at me and she said, "I can see us getting season tickets this year." And I went, boom, like my head exploded. I was like, yes, this is fantastic. So that's the kind of time that it is it's just a whole lot of people, everybody just having conversation, having fun, laughing, cheering. It's just the kids absolutely love it. They just go and they just scream their heads off. So yeah, can't say enough about the Steel Army. And if you go, for years, we used to go sit in like the grandstand with like regular fans, and that's fine. It's fun. You get to watch soccer, but to actually be there in the middle of it all, jumping and cheering. I mean, so much of soccer culture is that,
right?
Getting people in. And so we enjoy that. And then post game, I think one of the things that I really enjoy about the USL that worries me that if the Hounds ever moved to the MLS is something that would be lost is I've sort of mentioned sort of the family relationship multiple times throughout here, but the family relationship, even with the players. So I don't know if you guys do this, but after the game is over, they allow all of the fans on the field to hang out with the players. So like the kids get stuff signed from the players and things like that. But more often or not, you find yourself hanging out with, Corey Herzog or Robbie Mertz and just like catching up and be like, just dude, what's going on? Yeah. Like, how's it going? Like, how you feeling? And so it's really cool. It's really unique that way. Just that personal touch. And I think that's what gets a lot of people coming back. And yeah, we love it. Highmark Stadium is probably a smaller stadium when you look at a bunch of, I think the max capacity is 5,000.
Right.
Now the team recently purchased the land under Highmark, which was a big limiting factor in terms of expansion. So now they own that. So in theory, they could expand moving forward. But yeah, that intimate atmosphere is it's fantastic. So I have no complaints. We love going down there.
Yeah, we're not allowed on the field, but the players will walk around the stadium typically and sign autographs. And we have our seats on the north end, and when the players warm up, we'll get out there early enough where AJ can typically get the opposing goalkeepers to sign, either the programs or, like I got an energy scarf, and I had Corey Lorendi, sign it, and just if I have a scarf, I'll see if I can bring it and see if they can sign it, just to have and for here. So, but yeah, the family aspect, the closeness of it. If you go to MLS, that goes away. There's no way to sugarcoat that.
Yeah.
So for away fans, especially with me being out west here, if we were to come to Pittsburgh, and either spend a weekend or if it was just coming in for the day, what's kind of the must things to see in Pittsburgh, for people that don't live in the area?
So I think there's a couple things. I think if you're just in for the day, then obviously you're going to be a little bit limited in terms of what you can see. Literally right across the river is Point State Park. So basically where the three rivers converge, there is a giant park with a big fountain, and there's all sorts of walking trails and running trails. And it's really cool just to go down there and hang out. So that's a nice free option. And you can literally walk from the stadium across a bridge to get there.
Nice.
So that's cool. If you're looking for somewhere to eat, I would say there is a place on the south side called Piper's Pub, and they are like the local Premier League pub. You go in there any Saturday, Sunday morning. They got soccer playing. They got old guys in jerseys yelling at each other. It's fit. The first time I took my kids in there, they'd never been in there before. Chelsea was playing, and it was the game when Pulisic scored his hat trick.
Oh, nice.
We literally go in and we're waiting to get a seat, and all of a sudden people just start losing their mind. My kids, they're like, this is a restaurant. Like, I have, like, what? And so they're like ducking under tables, like thinking stuff's going down. By the third goal, they looked at me and they're like, kidding me? I was like, go nuts. And they're like, just thought it was amazing. So the guys at Piper's are fantastic. That is a must. That's a must go. If you're in Pittsburgh, go to Piper's Pub, get a meal there. And then most of the time, so the stadium, like I said, is on the south side. There are two inclines. There's one right near the parking lot that it's basically like a tram that goes up the side of Mount Washington to the top, where then you can look over the whole city.
Oh, nice.
And that's a really cool experience too. That gives you an awesome vantage point of all of Pittsburgh. So I think if you have a day and a half, that's sort of your schedule. Like, plan on going to Point State Park, take the incline, go to Piper's, make your way to the game, and just, have a blast.
Yeah, I'm hoping that, San Antonio gets to play Pittsburgh, and then it's the flights are affordable to bring the family and affordable is what gets by the wife.
Right. Yeah.
Because my affordable and her affordable are different for that here. But so it's a new year. There's new faces, and unfortunately there's people that have left the team. And I know early it seemed like the big names were leaving, Pittsburgh, which typically happens. It's one of the, probably a follow-up question that I have for you here is with Lily Ball, and I know you guys kind of touched on this on the last show here. He doesn't need the stars. So, like Ryan James, went to Legion. Thomas, I'm going to chop his name.
Bonky Azil.
Yeah. Went to the Loyal. Estevan De Santos went to the Rowdies. Thomas Gomez went to Sac Republic, and Ropa Mensah went to Sporting Kansas City too, were the two big ones there, or big ones that I saw that had left here. Out of those, which one do you think's the biggest loss? For the Riverhounds, that's going to be hard to replace this year.
So I'd say there's one that you mentioned. There's one you didn't mention. I'd say Ryan James, to me, is probably the biggest one. I think last year, Ryan James really stood up. So Kenny Forbes has sort of run our team for the past few years since Lily came in. He's been a Lily guy through and through. Literally, if you watch a game with Coach Lily, he stands on the sideline and just shouts constantly. And Kenny Forbes has been with him since Rochester. In my mind, he is like if Lily could reincarnate himself and put himself on the field, that would be Kenny. Kenny just knows. Like, he knows what to do. He knows how to control a game. So there was a stretch of time when Kenny was out, and Ryan James was typically our left back, and Kenny and Ryan stepped in and sort of filled Kenny's shoes. And I think a lot of us were like, look, Ryan is younger, he's quicker, like, he is like the future of this club. And so I think we've always said that one of the negative tendencies in Pittsburgh is that most players don't stay here more than 2 to 3 years. And I think you're seeing that a little bit in USL. There are some teams that do a better job of retaining players than others, but
Louisville City is an example. And once again, when we're sort of like looking at like, who do we want to be? And so I think there was a lot of hope that Ryan James, being a little bit younger, Ryan James was an all USL player last year in multiple positions. He could play all over the field. To see him go to Legion, it hurts. Like, I think if we see players leave, we like I said, we know these guys. We have a relationship with these guys. We want to see these guys succeed and do well. So the other guy that you didn't mention that left is Robbie Mertz, who
came up through the Hounds Academy, played with us for 2 years, I believe, was sort of an attacking force in the midfield, great young player. He left to go play for Atlanta too, and I think a lot of the hope was that eyes would be on him from Atlanta for MLS, and he has a chance to move up. So we can't fault Robbie for that at all. It's like, yeah, dude, you go get it. So I think Ryan James out of that list was the one that stings the most. Him and Tommy V, who like you said went out to San Diego. He was another one that had been with Lily for 3 years now. I think was sort of the rock solid core at center back and could play holding mid. He was another of those utility guys. Lily loves utility guys that can play multiple positions. Just fantastic player. So yeah, that's why heading into this season, I know there's been a lot of signings that the team has announced, but there's a lot of question marks for us because it's just there's some guys coming back, but otherwise it feels like we're almost starting from scratch.
Well, Forbes is back, which I think to me, being out west, he is the one guy in Pittsburgh that I think everybody in the league knows.
Yeah.
And then you guys had kind of, a list, Russell Cicerone, Alex Dixon, Todd Wharton, Josh Gatt were names that I knew for that here. And I know there's others here. Mm-hmm. So out of the ones that got signed, which ones do you think have the highest ceilings, or which ones are you excited about seeing the most?
I mean, I think if we're talking about like a known quantity, I would probably say like Russell Cicerone. I'm pretty excited about because he did pretty well, the past few years. I think the biggest question mark for me, you mentioned Josh Gatt. Yeah. I mean, he's someone who basically has been dealing with injuries most of his career. Had a shot with the U.S. men's national team before he had a bunch of surgeries. So the word on the street is that if he shows up, could be a game changer in the USL and could be trying to use USL as a platform to go on to greater things, which if he could, so if he can do that, fantastic. But it's just that question mark of can it happen or not? And I think a lot of times in USL, you have these almost flyer players where it's like, if they hit, they're going to hit a home run, but if they don't, you're going to be stuck with them. And we've seen a number of those players come through the Hounds over the years. So I think probably Gatt is the one that I'm most intrigued about to see if he actually does hit. But if I'm just looking from a consistency basis, I'm excited to see what somebody like Cicerone can bring into this team and contribute.
Because to me, Dixon and Wharton, you know what you're getting. They're steady, they're established. They'll be solid. They may not. To me, they're unless they have a career year, they're not going to do anything special. Right. And that's not to say that they don't do special things on the field, but you know what to expect.
Yep.
But to me, Gatt was the one that coming in where as you mentioned that. I think has the highest ceiling. The question is whether he'll return to form.
Yep.
One player Pittsburgh did sign and then released to allow him to move on was Alex Dejean, and I think I saw an article right before it came on that Coach Lilly was defending the move, which for me I understand why the Riverhounds did what they did, because if they say, hey, if you get an opportunity, we'll let you go. It's the right thing to do. That's how you keep bringing in people that are on that path, if you honor your word, because if you don't, that gets around
right.
For that here. To me, I guess my part is, and I know you guys talked about it on Mon Goals here, I would have liked to seen Atlanta United, even if it was $10,000, $20,000, just give up something, because I think, in my opinion, it makes Atlanta United – I don't think it makes them look very good, just for the fact that he did sign. Now, it was a USL contract. I understand MLS is different. It's a step up. But to me, I think as we're trying to move the player movement between the two leagues, between USL Championship and MLS, to me, I think, giving a transfer fee, even $10,000, probably not that much to Atlanta United, but for a USL Championship team, I don't say it makes a huge dent, but it will impact the budget. So, your thoughts on the Alex Dejean signing and then releasing and that process here, because I think the Riverhounds are catching a little bit of grief,
Yeah.
For doing it kind of like San Antonio caught with Christian Pirano last year of not selling him and collecting a transfer fee for that here.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's difficult is had this happened in isolation, I don't think the Hounds would have caught too much flack. And honestly, just 2 seasons ago, I think it was, with Cristiano Francois, I believe, the Hounds, Francois was with us for a year.
Mm-hmm.
We re-signed him, and then I think we sold the rights for him to Ottawa, I believe. And that was the first time. That was sort of the first time I had heard of a USL team sort of selling the rights to another team. So at that point, we were like, okay, it was interesting that the Hounds re-signed him if they knew they weren't going to keep him, and then they moved him on to make a little bit of money. So we were like, are we seeing a new era of the USL where this is going to become more common? So at that point, we're like, okay, so maybe the Hounds are sort of on the cutting edge of this. Maybe we have more of this to see in the future. And then, a few years go by, you don't really see it happen too much. And we're like, okay, so maybe that's not the case. And then, Indy, I think we talked about this. Indy had 4 players, I believe, that they basically turned around and sold to MLS. One player who never even suited up for a team picture for them, just turned them over and sent them to MLS.
10 to 20,000 for it.
Exactly. And they got money for it. And so I think had Indy not done that, and had there not been such a stink about it this offseason, then the Hounds probably wouldn't be catching as much flack as they have. I think what's interesting, and there's a whole conversation to be had, and I'm sure there's tons of people having it about what this means for development within the US. I think you're right. I think when you have these MLS teams that have deep pockets to kick 10, 15, 20,000 down to a US club, that's a huge difference for the USL club, and it means almost nothing to the MLS team. Now there is a whole conversation, and I forget who, I think there was an article that came out in the Athletic with Landon Donovan, where he was talking about the fact that as an MLS team, you have this option of either signing somebody in the USL or taking a flyer on sort of an unknown and not paying any sort of transfer fee. And at this point, the perception is that those two things are the same, and really they're not the same. And so what hurts is when, again, you see teams like Indy that are clearly profiting off this, and then you see teams of Pittsburgh that are just like, sure, go ahead, we'll give it to you. It sort of sets this precedent with the team that, not necessarily that we're pushovers, but I think it would be great, and I don't trust that U.S. soccer is ever going to do this, but it would be great if there was some sort of mandate that for the better development of everybody, if somebody is going to move from USL to MLS, then there should be some sort of transfer fee involved. That way you don't have individual teams that feel like they have to be the good guy, or you don't have other teams that are just out there trying to make money. And I just think that it's something that as U.S. soccer continues to grow, and as the structure in U.S. soccer continues to grow, it's just going to be something that hopefully we see more of. Because I don't have any delusions about, if we get some world-class player that comes through Pittsburgh, that they're not going to want to move on and play elsewhere. Like Zach Steffen, who is now the keeper at Man City, in U.S. men's soccer, played in Pittsburgh for 3 or 4 months as a loanee from Columbus Crew. And we take a lot of pride in that. Yes. And so we said, you should just put up billboards, good luck, Zach, all over Pittsburgh. So get people to come to the Hounds games and be like, this guy used to play for us. So, if people like Robbie Mertz end up going on and making it Atlanta, fantastic. We're going to root for Robbie. We'll root for Atlanta. That's awesome. So I think that it would be great if there was some recognition of that from MLS rather than just sort of poaching players.
So one thing I didn't ask about is the academy. And the reason why I ask about that, because I know in San Antonio, there's, especially this week,
I wanted to ask you about this.
Jose Gallegos is got offered a 2-week trial with Bayern Munich. And then they also signed Leo Torres, who started with the SAFC Academy, to a multi-year deal after signing him, I want to say 2 years ago. So you can kind of see where San Antonio FC is trying to lay that foundation of developing the kids in the SAFC Academy, when they reach 16, 17, 18, depending on when their skills, if they develop the skills to be able to play with the first team, start giving them a few minutes the first year, the Open Cup, stuff like that. I know the huge, a lot of people don't realize this, but Jose played the first year, got a few minutes. He made that big jump that off season from the first year to the second year. And then what really caught everybody's attention was the preseason friendly against FC Dallas. And then, COVID happened. I would have loved to have seen what he would have had a full season last year. Mm-hmm. So when you look at, Jose's numbers, they may not, some people are saying he kind of fell off because he only had 2 goals, 3 assists or something like that. But his impact on the game was a little bit more, teams were keying on him. So he wasn't the guy that was driving the ball there. But to me, for the Riverhounds, I know you guys have an academy because I was looking at the Riverhounds Academy, the Riverhounds webpage there. How is the academy structure? Is it kind of 1-on-1, kind of like here in San Antonio, where maybe you can start to see some of the fruits of the academy and start to be able to promote? I know SAFC says they want to have around 40% of its roster be from local, whether it's college, academy, or high schools, along those lines there, which I think for this level is excellent. Because if you're talking about I think it's 5-6 players, and a lot of those may be on the bottom end of the roster, but you could still say, it's a big deal when San Antonio brings in a local kid and they really hype them up and say, hey, it's one of ours for that here. Does Pittsburgh do that, or is that something that they're developing at this point?
So Pittsburgh has a pretty substantial academy, and honestly, when you sort of get into it, we've had a couple of conversations with Hounds owner Tuffy Schallenberger, and it seems that he's figured out that the real money in soccer is not it's not a pro team, it's the academy.
Yes.
So we have a number of different levels within the academy. There are now 2 different locations for the academy. There's like an east and west in Pittsburgh. They do a really good job of keeping players that sort of age out of the USL, and they keep them as coaches, which brings more people in to take part in the academy. And they just announced they built this massive new training facility that has 8 fields, like a huge indoor facility with gym and things like that. That's for the academy. It's for the pro team. And they also just announced 4 different tournaments in Pittsburgh that are sort of high school and college showcases to bring in teams from outside. So there's a huge focus on the youth game. And honestly, for years, the women that have come out of the academy have been absolutely like, it's almost been like, if you make it through the academy, you are guaranteed to get a scholarship to go play somewhere. Like, that's just what it is. And I think a lot of the parents we've talked to parents and they're like, that's the bet we're placing, is like, we'll happily pay for the academy because our kids are likely going to get a scholarship to go play somewhere. So the academy is huge. The problem is that we haven't seen a ton of players sort of make their way through. And we're hoping that over the next 2 to 3 years that changes a little bit. Robbie Mertz, we mentioned, is sort of the first big one, and he hit big. Like, we had parents when the Hounds first signed him, we had some parents from the academy telling us, like, look out, this kid can play. And it took him 2 or 3 games, and then he just caught on fire. So the hope is that over the next 2 to 3 years, we start to see that transition. I know they have a program where kids that are doing well in the academy will actually go and train with the first team. And so we've seen pictures of a lot of these kids out there training. So now it's just a matter of, them getting the opportunity to actually take the field and make that transition. There's a whole nother conversation, which our buddy Hugh Roberts, he used to play for the Hounds. He now plays for Charlotte. Charlotte. And where I think there's still this focus with a lot of youth in America that you basically go from the academy and your immediate instinct is to go to college. And so you don't see a lot of those players make that transition to the first team right away. And Hugh is a big proponent of, if you want to be a pro, go pro, because the younger you can do it, the more mileage you get under your belt and the quicker you're going to ramp up. And you may always have that opportunity to go back to college. You may not have a scholarship waiting for you, but take the opportunity while you have it. And I think for a lot of parents that are investing in the academy, that's a harder sell than what we as fans would love to see players just make the jump, and it's a hometown kid and this is great and let's get behind them. And like you said, the fact that if you guys are getting 30-40% of your players are from the area, that is fantastic. Like, we could get behind that for sure.
So to me, the person that highlights that is Ethan Bryant. So Ethan Bryant came in. He was too old for the SAFC Academy, but they had the EPT program where they came in, where if you were one of the top, within the different San Antonio academies, here in town, you still got to train with them. So he signed. He was one of the first people that, as far as the first young academy kids to sign. He played 2 years with us, and then he had the opportunity to go to a team over in Europe. That team ended up, folding financially, for that here, and then he came back, end of last year. But that experience that he got is invaluable. And like I said here, I know through USL, I believe they do offer college, the opportunity to go to college. I think it's through Southern New Hampshire, I think is who it's through. I think from Mikey Lopez is following on his social media for that here. So to me, I think that is where USL can make that impact. And especially, I think that's why they're trying to develop the USL League. Mm-hmm. It's why, I know you mentioned the Women's Academy. Yeah. For that here, it's why they're looking to, probably develop a women's league. I wish it was professional, but I guess they're going to start out as a pro-am league for that here. So I think for USL, they are trying to lay that foundation right, which has been needed very much at this level, because you have MLS, they have theirs, but there's a lot, there's 29 teams, 28 teams, 30 teams, depending on, who's in, who's out. Yeah. So there's just so much more that, USL and to be fair, NISA as well, mm-hmm. Can do to help develop, the next players for that here. So this year, moving on to this year, expectations for the Riverhounds, championship or bust, or more playoffs or bust?
I don't know, man. Look, so one of the, like we said, we sort of went back and looked in the past 3 years. Lily kept basically 70% of his roster. So that gave us a pretty good feeling of okay, we know these guys are coming back. These are the holes he's going to try to fill. Even if the people that he fills in those holes don't work out, we know that we still have the core and we're going to be okay. And this past offseason just blew that all up. So, we knew going into last season, we were going to have Tommy Vonkie-Azil at center back. We knew that Kenny Forbes was going to be in there in the middle. We knew Robbie Mertz was going to be there, and we knew that Steven Dos Santos was going to be up top. So there's your center. But you look at this year, Tommy V's gone, Dos Santos is gone, Mertz is gone. So while I think that the team and ownership is always going to tell you that it's championship or bust, I think we as fans are more just, we're almost back in that seat of well, as long as we got games, that'll be great. We can go watch soccer again. That's a good thing.
Yes.
So I think if the Hounds did not make the playoffs, it would be a massive disappointment, just because of the bar that has been set. So if they don't make the playoffs, then that's a shame. I think getting past the first round, which has been the Hounds' Achilles heel for the past few years, we've only done it once since Lily's been here. I think if we get past the first round, yeah, and I think if we can make that happen, then we'll consider it to be a good season, especially considering sort of the division breakups, the fact that we have Tampa in our division. Miami is splashing a lot of cash to get a lot of players too. Yeah. So
on the Atlantic, you got Tampa Bay Rowdies, which they're the defending Eastern Conference champions, and I think it was pretty split on who would win between Tampa and Phoenix Rising in the USL Championship. I think people in the West tend to lean more Phoenix. Yep. People in the East tend to lean more Tampa Bay. So I would have liked to seen it the offense versus the defense, because that's how it was built up. You got Miami FC that's basically trying to throw everything against the wall. You got Riverhounds. Hartford lost some talent, but they're bringing in some talent for their here. Charleston's the always steady. To me, they're kind of very similar to Pittsburgh. There's people in and out, but they always tend to be there at the end. Charlotte. We'll just leave Charlotte as Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
And then two of the two teams, New York Red Bulls 2, which is one of the better two teams, and then Loudoun United, which to me, I think they're like, Tacoma, where on any given night, they can beat the best team. But on the average, they're typically going to be more of the underperforming teams on there. And I think the expectation that, if is to have at least 4 teams per per division make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So I think Pittsburgh, I won't say they're 100% locked just because there are some holes, there's some questions. They typically start a little bit later historically, on the season. So it'll be interesting to where maybe if they go up against a team that's maybe played 2-3 games and they're starting out for that here. But thoughts on the Atlantic Division, and like I said here, especially from a Riverhound side, what's the teams that you're you're looking to kind of knock down a peg or two?
Yeah, I mean, I think coming into this, we were very eager to see Indy and Louisville again, and so we were disappointed that they're not in the Atlantic with us. So I think based on all of those teams that you mentioned, the two that sort of stand out for me, Tampa, obviously, because, they were top of the East last year. So those are the ones that that you're going to go in and you're going to have a battle. And we always, Charleston Battery and Pittsburgh were two of the sort of founding teams of like the new USL. And so there is sort of a level of pride anytime that we go up against them. I think it's sort of,
was it for a cup, like the Old Guard Cup or something?
There was an Old Guard Shield that was our two teams plus I think
Richmond, right?
Richmond was on there. At one point, Rochester was going to be on there, and then Rochester folded, and I think Harrisburg was on there, and then Harrisburg folded. So yeah,
that cup then.
Yeah, exactly. So really, literally we had it for one season, I think, maybe 2, and I think the fans knew that was going to happen just because of the nature of the USL and teams sort of going up and down and whatever. But yeah, anytime we play Charleston, it's always, like you said, they're always there. They know how to play. It may not be flashy, but at the end of the season, they're always going to be there in the top 4 or 5. Mm-hmm. So those are the two that I'm looking forward to. Miami is going to be interesting just because, like you said, they're throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall. So we'll see what happens. But I think teams like, Hartford are still relatively young and they're still trying to figure out who they are. And yeah, they came in last year and knocked us out of the top spot in our division, in that last game with a 1-0 win. So I think there will be some, for the guys that are still around, they're going to be looking at that as some retribution.
And my next question here, and you kind of hinted on this, is who is the Riverhounds' rival? Because it used to be Harrisburg City. I never put Union 2 on there. Bethlehem still, that was kind of a interesting relationship, I'll just say, because they technically were a 2 team, but they were under Bethlehem. You had Indy, for a little bit, I would have said it was Cincinnati, but they were, just because Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, but, they're obviously in MLS. Who is the rival, for Pittsburgh at this point?
Yeah, I think we talked about this a little bit last season. I think for the fans, we would like to think that most of the time rivalries are based on sort of location, like teams you can travel to, the fans that can sort of get into it back and forth together. And that's what made Harrisburg so much fun, was the fact that it's a 4-hour drive from Pittsburgh. We would always go back and forth, but Harrisburg since folded. Like you said, Bethlehem Steel, it felt like that was a bit forced just because they were another Pennsylvania team. And
they were a 2 team. It's
exactly.
hard to have a rival as a 2
exactly.
team.
They were a team, and I think a lot of people, the fact that they took the name Bethlehem Steel, which that name has a lot of history, it left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. So yeah, Cincinnati felt like a good rival because everybody loved to hate Cincinnati. Everybody, no matter where you are, which we found out the Hounds have a preseason game against Cincinnati. So I'm pretty excited about that.
And Detroit City. That was one that I was looking forward to, is Detroit City. I'm a big lower division fan guy, and ideally I would like to see more unity in the lower divisions. And like I said, I know the Loyal played Cal United Strikers. You guys are playing Detroit City. I think that's great for the lower division game, and the Northern Guard, even though they're obnoxious, to put it nicely. Obviously that team is well supported, and I doubt fans are allowed, I think is what you said, especially during preseason. But that'll be interesting to see the banter going back and forth, even in preseason between the two clubs.
For sure. So yeah, that's still, I've talked about a ton of teams, and that still leaves the question of who is our rival.
Right.
I think that a lot of fans look at Louisville as sort of, like you said, that bar. So in a lot of ways, I think we see Louisville as a rival, but there's a lot of mutual respect between us and Louisville. I think if there's a team that everybody has started to love to hate in the USL, it's Indy. And like the fact that Indy and Louisville are already rivals sort of like makes us a third wheel. So I don't think the Hounds actually have a rival at this point, like in a traditional sense. And especially now with the Atlantic Division, we're not really. There's a lot of teams that are closer to each other than we are. Like Miami and Tampa are both in Florida. You have, Charlotte and Charleston are there, and then you have sort of the more eastern corridor with New York, Loudoun, and Hartford. So, like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe we don't have a rival this year.
You need a team in Cleveland or Buffalo.
There's been rumors of a team in Cleveland. If the Rhinos ever come back, I think that could be the case, just because Lilly was with the Rhinos forever, and then the Rhinos folded and we took him. So I know there's a lot of fans that would love to see the Rhinos come back, and that could be a fun one. I could see us making that road trip.
To me, like in what I want to see a team in Cleveland, because I think that's, obviously Cincinnati down south in Ohio, Columbus, is in the middle.
Yep.
To me, for USL, obviously I'm not the one writing the check. To me, Cleveland would be the spot, because I think that would be your natural rival. Just going with the Browns and Steelers and the Riverhounds and whatever the Cleveland team name would be. That would be exciting to see. For that here,
for sure.
So the last question here, and we'll let you get out here. With the division of the Atlantic, you're going to have 4 out of division games. Most likely they'll be split 2 home, 2 away. So if you were in charge of the schedule, what team would you like to see come into Pittsburgh? And as an away fan, what place would you like to visit? And of course, this year, based on reports, it's open to all of USL.
Yeah, I would love to just see, the furthest west we could go. Like, let's just make all the games against Western teams. I have a feeling that's not going to be the case. But so often we hear about teams out west, and we never get to see you guys, and that's disappointing. Like, we want to come out, we want to play San Antonio, we want to play Phoenix, we want to play San Diego. It's just a shame.
You don't want to play RGV. Nobody ever wants to.
I didn't want to play RGV, but like, it's a shame that there isn't more of that cross country playing. And I know at one point, Jake Edwards, president of the USL, he had had a conversation with a buddy of ours, Phil Grooms, and he had talked about this idea for this USL Cup. Or I don't even think it was called USL Cup, but basically it was like cross-divisional tournament.
Cross-divisional and including League One. So
yeah. So the thought was that could potentially open the door to see more games where you are traveling, and it's not full season; it's sort of these one-offs. So who knows? Like, maybe this gives us an opportunity to actually do that. Yeah, man. Like I said, I'd love to see you guys come in, or us go to you guys, or everybody. If you ask a Steel Army member, they're going to say Vegas just because they want to go to Vegas.
That may have changed now that they're LAFC 2. So
yeah,
yes, going to Vegas. I won't lie to you. I made the trip to Vegas and saw the llamas, and it's actually a good experience. I will say, Cashman Field. For all the crap we give Vegas and all the clown show that they are, it is a fun trip to go to, and of course Vegas is Vegas. So if you're over 21, definitely a trip to make for sure. I know for me, I've said this on multiple. One of the spots, if I could go, would be to Pittsburgh. That's on one of my away visits, just because of the Highmark Stadium. for that here, just to be able to experience that. And plus, you guys are one of the more established teams in USL, where, from my understanding, there's no visions of MLS, per se. Hey, we're USL Championship. Hopefully not USL League One. For here, I know there was a couple of rumors on that, but I think you guys are going to be USL Championship for that here. But to me, like I said here, Mike, it's like I said, it was an honor to have you on. Like I said here, I followed you for many years since since San Antonio came in, and you've had the BGN network for that here. So really do appreciate the time that you took out tonight, for the show here. Any final thoughts that you have?
No, man, I just want to say thanks. We've sort of talked informally over the years through Twitter and chat and all of that. So it's great to finally actually talk to you face to face and have a conversation about this. But
it took a little bit to get confidence to be able to do this. And
dude, you're crushing it. This was a great time. Anytime you want to get together and talk, I am game.
Yeah, no worries. Now that we may get to see each other, hopefully more than once, in the USL Championship finals here. But
yeah, for sure.
I'll let you run, because I know you mentioned that you wanted to get out a little bit earlier because you have evening plans here. So, but it was a pleasure speaking with you here. And like I said here, I'll be releasing this probably at this time, maybe tonight, very latest tomorrow morning here for that here. And I will tag Mon Goals on there. But thank you for joining, and have a good evening.
Thanks, man. You too.